I was wrong. This is Drutter, and today is April 11th, 2021, and I was wrong for a very long time about certain aspects of the topics religion and spirituality. And I did talk about that a little bit more back when I was starting my channel. I was quite, I guess you could say, anti-religious. I was brought up in a Christian home, but I won't go into it too deeply, but I eventually left the Christian religion and just decided that, morality was my thing. And so if someone would have asked me if I was an atheist, I would have said yes, but the more accurate description probably would have been agnostic. As I said, I don't know anymore. I don't claim to know. I believe in science, I believe in the scientific method, I believe in logic, all that kind of stuff, and I rejected all things to do with religion and spirituality. So I just want to say that I still believe that dogma, most dogma, and a lot of the major religions out there are a big problem. I do still believe that. And, no offense to anyone who considers themselves part of a major religion. I'm not trying to be offensive to you. This is only my opinion, and you have yours, which differs. And so, I'm not offended by your opinion, and I hope that you're not offended by my opinion. But if you are, that's too bad, because I'm allowed to have that opinion. And I still think they are a big problem, but you know what's an even bigger problem? Tyranny. And here, if you haven't noticed, in Canada and around the world right now, we are dealing with a massive upsurge in tyranny. And it's not that it has just appeared now, it's been there for a very long time. I don't even know how long this whole system basically has been set up to go where it is going now. And but the technocrats, the people who control the world with technology, and no, I'm not completely against technology either, but it is being used for evil in many ways right now. The technocrats are and have taken over the world, essentially. The bankers, the big pharma, and the mainstream media, along with certain aspects of the deep state. And you can say it's the government, but government has always been a corrupt problem. That's not the thing. It's the deep state. It is a globalist cabal of essentially evil, mad humans. And they are a major, major problem right now. And I'm not even going to go into the fact that they all are part of various religions or have their own religion. In fact, let's not even go into that, what's going on with those people. But this is sort of more from my own perspective. And I want to bring it back to that and admit that I was wrong. And that is a very hard thing to do. If you haven't ever done that, I would invite you to look for something that you were wrong about or are wrong about. Say you are wrong about it, and that can begin the process of becoming less wrong about it. And another way to say that is we don't grow without having mistakes. So when you make a mistake and you realize it was a mistake, they call that a learning experience. So you can have the biggest learning experiences of your life by realizing some things that you were wrong about. And I'm not going to go into that any further, but that's almost bordering on the realm of spirituality and self-improvement and that kind of stuff, isn't it? And that's another word that I was very against, spirituality. When I was Christian, as a child and a youth, my parents and the religion itself told me that spirituality was the enemy, was actually evil. And anything to do with, paganism or nature or magic or, anything that's not the Bible essentially was evil. And so spirituality was sort of made very negative and very dirty to me. And so when I rejected Christianity, I continued to reject spirituality as well, and I became essentially just an agnostic. And I'm not even saying anything bad about agnostics, and I think that we all have the right to believe and not believe various things. Of course we do. That is a fundamental right as a human and as a being, as in anything. We have the right to believe anything we want, even if it's wrong. So, beliefs are internal. That is internal. Behavior is external, and behavior is something that maybe can be policed or enforced. But beliefs are something that humans for the longest time have believed that they have the right to have. And I believe that right. I am a believer in the right to believe. And now here in Canada and around the world, we're facing all kinds of attacks on our liberty and our freedom, including our right to believe things. The mask issue is one of the big issues right now here, and I think in a lot of places. And for decades now, people coming to Canada from, say, Muslim countries, it was a very small trickle until about 2015, but for decades there have been some Muslims in our country, and they have fought for the right, mostly for their put on their women, but mostly for the right to cover their faces. And that is a religious belief, and they have fought in court battles and in the public opinion and so on and so forth to win the right to cover mostly their females' faces in public. And that is not a health reason. They cite religious reasons for that, for the most part, or cultural reasons. So, we've won the right to cover our faces, but now we're actually losing the right to not cover our faces. So we're losing the right to not be masked now in Canada. And I'll put down below a story. The story itself is not too important, and who's involved is not too important. The fact that it made the front page of the mainstream media is what's important, because it's what they're signaling. And they're signaling that your religious exemptions to masks are bullshit. That is the official statement by the Human Rights Tribunal. Of course, they don't use the word bullshit, but a man tried to, he was fired for not wearing a mask, and he said it was his religious belief. This man was a Caucasian man, I guess, so maybe he had lost already by not being a Muslim, but in any case, he went to court and they ruled against him because they said it's his opinion that he not wear a mask, not any true religious belief practiced by a major religion. So he doesn't have a major religion, and to back him up. But do any of the major religions say we can't wear face coverings? I don't think so. So it's almost like they're saying there is a religious exemption possible, but you're going to have to take us to court and find out what that religious exemption might be. And so far, nobody has actually been granted a religious exemption. It's ruling against people. So this man does not have the right to wear no mask. He doesn't have the right to wear no mask in public, even though he has a religious belief. And it talked about his religious beliefs. It strawmanned them a little bit. It made it sound like it was a bit more ridiculous than it was, and it didn't go into the full details. They probably just picked and chose what he said. But essentially, it sounds like he believes that God created him in God's image, and it might be a sin, or it might be angering God to cover that up. I don't know if that's true. Maybe he's just making that up, but maybe he actually believes that. And how is it for the court to determine that he doesn't believe that? If he is saying he believes it, did they, put it through a polygraph test or what? How did they find out that he truly doesn't believe that God is going to be angry at him if he covers his face? Because there are people with the opposite belief that believe that God will be angry with them if they don't cover up their face, right? So if that religious belief could be possibly true, and we'll give people the benefit of the doubt there, why not the opposite? It's just as plausible. We don't really know the heart of God as far as I'm concerned. I don't know it, and I don't know if you know it. I don't know if anyone does. And for us to say, God wants me to this, or God wants you to do this, I think we have the right to decide for ourselves, and as long as we're not harming others, that's liberty. We have that right in Canada, liberty, at least we used to. But the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which was created in 1982 by the father of our current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, his father Pierre Trudeau, he gave us the 1982 Rights and Freedoms Charter, and I guess his son is basically knocking it down. So he set it up, and his son is knocking it down because it has been destroyed. It has been cancelled, I guess you could say. We don't have a charter here, just like the Americans don't have a constitution. It's not the ultimate law of the land, as it says right at the very top of it. It's not. It's just not obeyed, and all laws are created to destroy those laws. They're not created to uphold the Constitution or the Charter. Sad but true. And in Alberta, the city of Edmonton, you probably heard about it. There's a pastor by the name of James Coates, I believe, Coates. He had a standoff, yesterday. Today, I guess. Today's Sunday. He had a standoff today. He tried to reopen his church. You probably heard about this guy. There's a pastor in Alberta, in Calgary, Alberta, and a pastor in Edmonton, Alberta. And both of them are fighting the police, literally fighting the police. The one in Calgary, he shouted them out. He shouted them out of his place of worship. Nazis, he was saying. Gestapo, get out! Great clip if you haven't seen it. But the point is, I will fight for the right to worship and to believe in Canada. I will fight for that right. In fact, I have fought for that right. I have fought to uphold the right for Canadians to believe and to worship and to gather and worship as they choose. I have always done that. Even when I spoke against the major religions and said even when I said I'm not spiritual and I think spirituality is bullshit, even when I said that, I believe that I have the right to believe that, and you have the right to believe the opposite or some variation of that. That is part of being Canadian. That's part of being human. It's part of being alive. We all have that right to believe. For them to even try to infringe on religious rights and the right to believe what we want is frightening. It shows how far gone we have come and how far down that road to tyranny we are. We're essentially at a minute to midnight on the tyranny clock. There's no more time. We've wasted all our time. We squandered it. We didn't listen to the people who were talking about it for the longest time. And this isn't tyranny, they would keep saying. Wake me up when they're coming door to door with needles or whatever. Wake me up when it's a permanent state of emergency in Canada. Wake me up when they're not allowing us to go to worship and believe what we want to believe. People said for years. They've moved their line. They've moved that red line, or the line in the sand. They just keep moving it. People just keep moving it. They don't have conviction in their beliefs. Speaking of beliefs. And I've been to protests here. Kelowna, Vernon, Salmon Arm, Armstrong, all these Okanagan towns, Revelstoke. Up and down this Okanagan Valley here in central British Columbia, we are fighting for the right to worship and to believe. And I have joined that fight. I am fighting alongside Christians. In fact, Christians that go to my parents' church. Many of them. I've had all kinds of people that go to my parents' church. It used to be my church long ago, before I left town and went to Vancouver for 25 years. But now I'm back up here, and I am fighting for the right for these people to gather, to protest, to believe, to worship, even though I don't want to join them in those activities necessarily. We must all have that right. Otherwise, it's not liberty. And if we don't have liberty, we have tyranny.